Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Glad to be here tonight. And we're going to get started here very shortly, but we're going to start with a trailer so I can introduce you all. Sorry, we got audio feedback. I'm getting it together here. Listen, I've got a very special guest who I'm bringing on today, but let me kind of get everything started here by showing you a very small trailer from, of what we're going to be talking about.
Haven't you ever heard of a killer? I drop bombs like Hiroshima.
Somebody said, look at LeakYou video. What the fuck is LeakYou? Is it like a site? What's LeakYou? LeakYou. Is it a YouTube channel? Oh, shit. Oh, no. All right, bet. Here we go.
All right, we're looking at the interview suite at S4. It's kept dark for the comfort of the aliens. The figure who is just barely visible in the left foreground is the telepath, and behind the camera is a raked seating area for observers. Although in this case, I believe the only other person present was a military aide. The alien is seated behind a glass partition in a biocontainment area, which is maintained at Biosafety Level 2, the lowest designation. That's primarily for the protection of the aliens, not us. The theory is that if they were going to infect us with an alien bug, it would have happened 50 years ago. In fact, all the indications are the aliens eliminated microbial and viral life from their own ecosystem long ago. They aren't susceptible to our diseases directly, but it has been shown that microbes can reproduce and form colonies within their respiratory systems, which tends to exacerbate the debilities they seem to suffer anyway in our environment. In fact, you can see here the alien is beginning to flag. The interview was not going well. The telepath was trying to clarify some points from a previous interview, but he wasn't receiving coherent response.
Please hit the like. Thank you.
All right, unmuting, getting all that off the screen. And welcome, Jon Stewart, to the show tonight. Sorry we were running a little late here. Seems like technical issues abound or what.
The worldwide alien hunter can't make too much. Gives everyone out there a lot of confidence in me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me tell everyone about Jon. I was introduced to Jon from Project, episode I just seen on Project Camelot, thanks to a LeakYou subscriber, a member of the LeakYou community. And she told me about the show. I watched it. I was blown away. So I'm going to tell you off the cuff, I'm not even going to ask a lot of questions because I just feel that energy, and I just know that I want to hear everything that you have to say. But to introduce Jon Stewart to everybody, former pro wrestler, candidate for Illinois governor, has had a 15-year journey of discovering the truth of this 1997 Victor whistleblower's film of this Area 51 alien interview, right? And I'm very interested in the professional wrestler aspect of it, but also candidate for both United States House of Representatives and most recently Libertarian candidate for Illinois governor. And you've been on national media like O'Reilly, Hannity, CNN, and even the New York Times. And I like the fact that you're into the UFO community and cryptozoology, which is another really great topic that I absolutely love. So it's really great to have you here today. So tell us about this investigation that you've been working on with this alien interview. I mean, I'll let you just take it away.
Sure. Thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much. I received, and I know people say this, I receive thousands of emails a day as a UFO researcher. Anyway, I don't believe that. But I received like 5 or 6 emails today from your show that were so nice and so genuine. I'm a sensitive guy. I wear my heart on my sleeve. These people were so kind in their comments. And I just want to say to Carrie and to the people that emailed me, thank you so much. It really means a lot. You know, you're out here, with your tail in the wind, and you're in no man's land. So, and when people write you, it's over. It's, to me, it's a little overwhelming, and I appreciate it. And getting to the larger point, thank you for having me on Leak You.
Absolutely.
A great show. I've seen it before, and anyone that helps me get this. Just get the message out that, this investigation is not about Jon Stewart. It's not about the United States government. It's about the citizens of the United States. And I'm not being Pollyanna. I'm not doing a campaign whistle stop. This is about a crossroads in America where people, the time for the cloak and dagger and the darkness of government that kind of started in Vietnam and the Nixon administration. Guys, it's over. We need to move on. We really do.
Disclosures
And I
here.
because I don't think that, in my opinion, that the world is in any imminent doom, because for hundreds of thousands of years, other beings have traversed the skies and the galaxy to come to this beautiful planet. So, my investigation has had humor. I hope to inject some of that here today. And
Love it.
I like to just start. I just want people to, I have some caveats, and I say this is what you're about to hear is what has been told to me, what I have read, what I have discovered. And yes, some things that I was told and read were exciting at the moment, but I was a true investigative journalist. I vetted all of my sources, 3-4 levels of vetting to make sure that when I do speak about things, at least I've given it the all-American try.
Mm-hmm.
I still, I'm not saying I know 100% of the truth. I don't have the alien in my basement in formaldehyde. Most, and I hope people can respect the fact that I'm a 56-year-old middle-aged grandfather, semi-retired businessman, and I stepped up to the plate to break into the most high-tech facility ever designed and built known to man, to do it 30 years in the past, where 90% of my witnesses were dead.
Yes.
So, and remodel a kitchen and buy a black Labrador puppy. And I mean,
That's amazing.
My wife and I aren't the sharpest pencils in the drawer. So to take
Amazing.
but we
yes.
did. So little. And I just want to before I begin with my investigation, because there's somebody else out there that's the only true Victor investigation. I just want to let you know. Yeah. What I went through. I interviewed 43 experts. Now that's many times. That's contacting them. That sometimes is waiting 5, 6, 7 months, a year to finally speak to them. I've sent over 287 emails. I've traveled to 7 states in America: Havana, Cuba, London, Oxford. I've paid $2,500 to do a secondary high-tech video analysis by the man National Geographic hired to do the high-tech
Wow.
analysis of Patterson Gimlin. So, when you're taking $2,500 of the checking account, mama's not happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it. I've contacted people like Hewlett Packard Space Labs. I've done my own experiment on could I create this monitor myself to hoax it myself to
Mm-hmm.
again sources. I drove over 10,343 miles for this investigation in America. I have interviewed 4 special effects experts, 2 lie detection experts from the Reed School of Lie Deception, an FBI analysis, 4 police officers. I've been to 7 states. I've done 13 FOIA requests. I've written 6 congressmen, 4 articles for online magazines. I've researched this. My journey has gotten so bizarre. I spent months researching protein enzyme extraction, ham radio operators, and I've spent probably about 3 weeks combing obituaries on legacy.com.
Wow.
I spoke with a former retired rep of the Vatican. I've gotten tinnitus for my trip in Havana. I'm not piling on that I got the infrasound attack like the diplomats got. All I know
Right.
is I came back from Havana with tinnitus. I have ringing in my ears currently. I don't want sympathy. I'm just telling you the stuff I had to put up with.
Interesting.
I got dysentery in Havana. I almost had to go to the hospital for hemorrhoids because of the dysentery. And then, I know that's Seinfeld-esque, but it is the truth. I've been blacklisted by the Pentagon. The truth. I have been no contact blacklisted by the Pentagon. Like if you ask somebody from the Pentagon, can I speak with Jon Stewart? It is a cease and desist, no contact order. I am, according to the FOIA department of the Defense Intelligence Agency, I am the only FOIA requester in DIA history that has his name on the computer of DIA without a file attached. And
Wow.
I've never seen this before in the history that I've been here at the FOIA desk. His name was Andrew. So, and I've done the study of 16 millimeter film in the Air Force. I've become an expert on VHS digital overlay graphics, which is what was on the bottom of the film.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten to be an expert on military uniforms, the history of Area 51, and mining and construction of these underground facilities. So if there's somebody else out there that has done a more comprehensive investigation, and I'm not saying this as a Christmas brag letter, I just want to get it across to people. I worked my ass off for you, for the American people, so I could come to people, like you, LeakYou, and pound my chest a little bit for the fact is that I worked hard and
Yeah.
I did the best job I could. And I am one of those few UFO people, alien phenomenon people that come out and say, I don't know either. I'm one of you. I don't know. I don't know the truth either. But this is what I found. Why don't you listen to me? Make your own decision. You don't have to write me an hour later that I'm fat and I didn't go to, I'm a loser wrestler because I never made it to WrestleMania. And what were some of the
What was your
blank,
wrestle name?
this dude's got ADD. I know I have ADD. So anyway, I'm glad I got that across. So thank you. And I know I speak fast. I'm going to try and slow down here.
That's okay. That's okay. What was your wrestling name or your
I
stage name?
started off as the Beach Boy, which was,
Okay.
fun love. I quit Memphis State football in '86. I started wrestling with Jerry Lawler. And then I became the illustrious Johnny Stewart, which was like a Ric Flair gimmick. And I
Love
did this
Ric
in
Flair.
college. I wrestled Sergeant Slaughter on the ESPN main event while I was a junior in college. I am telling you, Sergeant Slaughter was quizzing me about managerial psychology the following Monday in the locker room of the Mayo Civic Center. So I've had a very bizarre, very, very, very bizarre
Very
life.
interesting life.
Yeah, and for a guy that just wanted to step in the ring once, because wrestling in the 80s was like the mafia. There was no entrance way. You had to finagle your way to meet a wrestler or promoter. You had to beg,
Yeah.
borrow. You had to go through, just like the mafia, loyalty test and whatnot. And for a guy that just wanted to climb in the ring once, and I got to wrestle on ESPN for the light heavyweight championship of the world. I know wrestling is all about miles and money. I put in the miles. I didn't get a lot of money. But it was a great experience. I've had a lot of great experiences, and I think that is part and parcel to some of the success that I've had with this investigation. I've become extremely tenacious. I don't give up. I've learned through traveling all these years with wrestling to be kind and slightly it's a bad word, slightly manipulative to
Mm-hmm.
get ahead of the line or to get an answer or to get on this next flight or
Mm-hmm.
get it. It's called
But in a
beguiling.
good way,
Yeah,
in a
in
good
a good
way.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's a beautiful blouse, and can I get on the next flight? And and are you a wrestler? Of course I am. Do you want a picture? Okay, that kind of stuff. And LeakYou, that was something that first of all, there's really two people that really did the a deep dive on this. One was Andrew Burlington in England, who really hyper studied the video, and myself. There's
Mm-hmm.
been no one else, and that really pissed Victor off when he came back in the second documentary. But why I think I've been successful where some people have failed, maybe, or didn't come up to par with the alien interview or other videos or other things that people have investigated, is that I never came at any of the 43 experts and whistleblowers that came to me with gotcha questions. I asked a question. I sat there. I listened. I took it at their speed. A lot of times I was tested for weeks and months to see if I was ready to receive any
Mm-hmm.
kind of information, and that patience level, which I never had, I gathered, and I would just, I tried to be a nice person and sincere. And I think that really was the linchpin that helped me be a lot successful in finding out so much information about this
Wow.
video and about Victor and about the government's alien interrogation and retention program.
Alien. Say that word again.
Yeah. So let's start with the first bombshell. The official designation set forth by the Defense Intelligence Agency, what I was told. Now, don't be mad at me, LeakYou. I'm going to say that a lot because we have keyboard warriors that are just what I was told. The Defense Intelligence Agency, who took over the entire alien program from the Air Force. You are not going to believe this, but the Air Force in the 60s, when Barry Goldwater was a senator, said, we are done. We can't take this anymore. Project Blue Book is over. They literally, for all intents and purposes, metaphorically, put the alien program, the capture of craft, beings, reverse engineering, up for auction. And I'm being metaphoric. And the United States senators, led by Barry Goldwater, started the Defense Intelligence Agency because they were frustrated too. They were getting the runaround. This is really important for people to understand this.
Mm-hmm.
Senate and Congress were getting a runaround. They wanted to have their own collection of information. So they started the DIA. Barry Goldwater was instrumental. By the way, Barry Goldwater, still to this day, other than maybe Harry Reid, is the most was the most read in briefed senator up until 4 minutes ago. This is what I was told.
Wow.
He was stymied by Curtis LeMay. Anyways, so the DIA takes and grabs the alien program from the Air Force, from what I
Right.
was told. And their official designation of what you see on this video is called the Alien Retention and Interrogation Program. That is verbatim from a DIA report. The Alien Retention, which is obviously the capture,
Wow.
which is a specialized Air Force unit, by the way, that does that, and retention. And there's many names for them. There was an attempt to have some comportment with these beings from off planet. They were called visitors, ambassadors. The interview suite that Victor talks about with this alien creature, which you showed and we'll talk about, was actually called the Ambassador Suite. And
Wow.
Sean Morton actually found that out. Sean Morton has been a very instrumental part of just being my coach and pointing me, like, because he's had an in-depth interview with the Navy SEAL Sentry who was down at S4. Anyway,
Right.
so that's the official designation. The housing complex is called the Alien Housing Complex. And the next bombshell is that this S4, it's like this really cool name that everybody throws around. And
Right.
we have now like three sources that say, stop saying S4. You're going to be a really intelligent person in the UFO community if you start throwing around S2, Sector 2. That is the entire area where this underground program takes place. And to get there, you have to go to Annex 2, which is just a little bit west of Papoose Lake and 10 miles south of Area 51. And it's Annex 2 is the building that you enter. You drive down the ramp. They hook up an exhaust hose to your car's exhaust pipe. You walk into the office, you exchange badges, and then you are taken underground over to S4. S4 is simply the building that is underneath Papoose Lake, and that has 4 levels, with the 5th, I guess, basically being the top level where craft are stored in a 60-degree angled hangars, and the doors are painted, or covered with a sand-like substance to mimic the mountainside. So
Amazing.
that's the overall. This program is real. Victor, well, let's just start from the beginning. So there's the recaps. Well, 3 highly intelligent whistleblowers came forward to me and with very bits of information that I just put together for you just a second ago. It's 97. I'm living this great life. I'm a part-time pro wrestler. I'm an automobile dealer. I'm living downtown in Chicago. I'm not bragging, folks. I'm trying to give you context so you understand why this grabbed me. And I got a boat on Lake Michigan. I'm driving an 8-year-old black Porsche. I mean, I was like Charlie Babbitt in Rain Man. I was just, I was auto dealer, wrestler. I was running for state rep, and my buddy's like, "Hey, there's going to be some kind of alien show on the UPN network." So it's called The Alien Interview. LeakYou, forgive me. This is my George Costanza and me. I'm thinking alien interview. I'm going to see a humanoid looking person at the Pentagon with a clipboard trying to get a job interview. I really didn't know. I've got my chips, on the couch, and the Chicago skylines to the left of me. I'm drinking my Diet Pepsi, and all of a sudden, this unproduced, non-Hollywood special effect creature comes on the camera, and I thought I was being punked. I'm like, what am I watching here? There was no cuts. There was no blurriness. No one was purposely trying to block your view.
Those things that they do, those techniques that they use.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
I call it bullshit.
Yep.
And at the end, it shows, towards the end, you do see a highlighted quick shot of the creature's torso. There's no puppetry in front of it or underneath it. And my first instinct is this. And again, folks, just work with me here. If you're going to hoax an alien video of a gray alien, why do you make it terracotta, or as Linda Howe calls it, peanut butter color? Why is this thing gray? If you're going to hoax me, make it gray. If you're going to have a hoax gray alien, why does it not have almond eyes? Special effects people have told me that's an easier hoax than a round eye because of the nature of the servos, or however you would move the skin. So you initially put out a video of a gray alien that's brown with round eyes. I would say you're an idiot producer to start with, and you're wasting, whoever is hoaxing this video. Then there's the monitor. If you see that, the monitor is going up and down. At first glance, it looks like it's a pane of glass with some kind of laser on it, or a cathode ray tube.
I have wondered for years what that is.
So that was the beginning of my research. So I'm thinking, how did they get some kind of weird monitor like that in there? Now the creature is coughing, and here comes the medical staff, Heckle and Jekyll, as I call them. I know these men now. I mean, folks, the 2 men you are seeing going to be entering the room who touched the creature. One is dead. One is still practicing medicine in Connecticut. I mean,
An actual doctor.
And the 2 doctors, here they come. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I'm becoming Victor here because he was very disgruntled.
Yeah.
And Victor said the medical staff is hired more for their willingness to keep secrets than their medical knowledge. And so the man with the gauze to the right of us, he is practicing medicine in Connecticut as we speak. Wow. He's old. He's about 78 years old. The man to the left, He died in California. He's the only doctor I've ever read that doesn't have any information about him on the internet. Isn't that a little strange? The
Very.
left right now holding the creature's shoulders. I spoke to his second wife, who he died in. She was the widow. And I'm not jumping forward, but it's a good point to bring this up. I told her, it's like telling somebody your husband is a transvestite. He wears women's clothes. Think about calling an 80-year-old woman saying your husband, worked with aliens. And I'm not going to say her name. She's in California, 80 years old, nicest lady in the world. I told her who I was. And I said, I have very good information that your husband was a physician, a doctor attendant to, I know this is really uncomfortable for me to say, ma'am, but to an off-planet being, an extraterrestrial. She didn't laugh. She didn't hung up. Silence on the phone. I'm like, what's going on here? She goes, well, Jon, that really makes a lot of sense. And I did this about 20 times in my journey. Like, holy shit, this is working. She goes, that really is weird. That really makes sense. And I said, well, why is that? Can you elaborate? She said, my husband refused. This is a quote. My husband refused to talk about anything to do with his time in the Army Medical Corps. Now, again, this is George Costanza. What's the Army Medical Corps?
Right.
She's like, well, that's the doctor corps of the Army. I'm like, okay, I never knew that. She said, Jon, this is weird. Folks, verbatim. Jon, this is weird. All of our friends who are our age, they were in Korea, World War II, Vietnam, other than harsh combat situations. All of our friends have these hilarious stories about boot camp or, being shipped off here or their drill instructor or their commanding officer or really cool stories of the armed forces. She goes, we would be, out with couples of our age. And my husband would sit there and never inject any story about his time in the medical corps. And she goes, and now I know why. She goes,
Wow.
I said, I will send you the video. I sent it to her. She sent me an email back because I sent it through my email. And she said, he's got a thin, pointy nose, and that looks like my husband to the creature's right or left. And I thank you for bringing this to me, and have a nice day. Now, we could stop there, couldn't we?
My gosh. That's
and
huge.
the whistleblower, and we'll get to this, who sent me the list of people, the doctors in the room, and the military men behind the viewing partition glass, which is what the camera went through. So I do a wrap up here. So what you're telling me is some hoaxer out there found a doctor who is 90 years old, who was in the Army Medical Corps, who has a wife that claims he kept quiet the whole time. I mean, and I called this woman completely out of the blue. Oh, and that Northern California country doctor doesn't have a thing about him on the internet.
Makes no sense.
How could you be a doctor and not have one, your former office hours or some award?
No business, no patient reviews, nothing.
And this is what another whistleblower told me. And Don Schmidt, the Roswell expert, tells me sheep tipped, and it's they, I don't know who they is still to this day. Government, the shadow government, this group of people that operate on the periphery of, our world, global society.
Right.
I don't know. I'm telling you, folks, I'm a UFO researcher, and I'm telling you, I don't know. So appreciate my humility.
Oh, we do.
And I'm not. I just want to get that across. So a hoaxer found this old lady to tell me that her husband is mums on his experience.
And it made sense to her.
Yeah. So that was 97. It's 99. I'm running for Congress. I dropped out of what the New York Times called the dirtiest congressional race in United States history. There was 11 candidates, and we did everything except like autopsy each other's loved ones. It was horrific. My wife's like, you are dropping out. You have no chance of winning. So I end up endorsing a man that became congressman and a U.S. senator. He's now retired. He brings in John McCain. Folks, I'm just telling you like it is. He brings in John McCain. We do a bus tour of the district at the end of the campaign cycle for the primary or for the general election. So I take a picture with John McCain after his speech. We're about to get back on the bus, and I stop him right before the hallway. I have a picture of this in my home. I said, Senator, I said, just want to let you know my father worked on was a hydraulics mechanic on F9s in tactical fighter training in Corpus Christi. And he's like, oh, I took my course. I took the fighter jet training in Pensacola. He goes, oh, that's great. And Dad must be a
Mm.
really cool guy. I said, before we get on the bus, Senator, what is the Department of Naval Intelligence? And folks, this is what Victor tells us is on the bottom of the screen of the film DNI, David
Mm.
November Igloo. And Victor says this is for the Department of Naval Intelligence. Now
Mm.
I'm asking, I think it's right under. Okay,
Yep,
so
DNI right there.
here is LeakYou. Here's the idiot hoaxer number 3. This is you and I are hoaxing this video, so we've hired Phil, the producer. Phil
Right.
puts an acronym on the bottom of the film of a military organization that doesn't exist. It didn't exist in '91. You Google it, all you get is the Office of Naval Intelligence. Okay, important to know. Why would you put that at the bottom of the video? I got to be an expert in digital overlay graphics. That costs like $3,000 to put that in acronym, burn it, it's called, onto
That's
that.
right.
So it's called the DNI. So I asked Senator McCain, what is the DNI? The Department of Naval Intelligence. LeakYou, this holly jolly, fun-loving senator snapped his neck. His eyes metaphorically got black. He said, you don't need to know anything about that. And he snapped his neck and he walked into the tour bus, never to talk or approach me for the rest of the weekend. So let me ask you a question, because I'm Jon Stewart, the wrap-up artist. I got a video of a gray alien that's brown. He's got round eyes instead of almond. I've got a United States senator that I told an acronym on the bottom of the film of a military organization that doesn't exist, and he ripped my head off. And I've got a wife that's telling me that the husband, the medical doctor on The Creature's Right, never talked about his time in the medical corps. What would you do in 1999? And I'm like, I don't.
Nuts
Yeah, he walked in
investigating.
the bus. I'm at this campaign rally and there's reporters and everything. I'm like, I don't believe what just happened. And legitimate reporters, because I'm not a professional reporter,
Mhm.
have told me, John, that we've had those moments where you're onto something, where you've touched the third rail and you've hit something, you've hit a nerve. Okay, I live life. I have kids. My wife and I, who I'm still married to for 22 years. If you want to give credit to anybody in this journey, credit that woman.
Shout out to your wife.
Up to 4 a.m. for 5 years watching documentaries and YouTube and writing notes with my pen that glows, that has a light at the end. So I write in the dark. Anyway, I just want to give my wife Joann credit for that. She's just awesome. And
Wow.
so I living life and whatnot. And I'm in my driveway one day and it's COVID. It's the first time I've had a day off without it being a vacation. I'm a freaking workaholic that I'm a recovering workaholic because now I'm semi-retired. Yeah. Don't be a workaholic, So I was, recovering workaholic. It's the first time I've had some days off because of COVID. And I'm in my car one time on the driveway and I got really home early. I'm an automobile dealer and a lot of my occupation is buying cars all over the Midwest at auction. So I had an early day and I'm in the driveway. I wasn't visited. I didn't hear things in my head. So we can, the keyboard warriors. I just simply got the feeling about this monitor. No, unexplainable. I was busy, COVID, the world's collapsing, and I'm in my driveway and this monitor is, find out about it. I'm like, you know what? I have 4 hours to kill. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to figure out something about this monitor. And I can
And you're referring to this monitor.
Yeah,
the
right.
blue.
Look at that weird monitor with the blip up and down, not horizontal.
Mhm.
Okay. I find 3 professors that did a thesis on physiological monitors, the history of them. Do you know anybody more of an expert than people doing a thesis on it? I sent them.
No.
We have no idea what that monitor is. Let me repeat this. 3 professors, they're in Sweden. They did the history of physiological monitors. We have no idea what that is on the tape. Again, credit to my investigator, my tenacity. I then said, that doesn't solve anything. I called a special effects guy, the first one. He goes, well, it could be a laser on a servo. He goes, I'm like, come on, it's too thick. So my daughter and I get a pane of glass. We get Connect 4 brackets. We glue them to the pane of glass. I buy a green laser. I do the experiment. It kind of looked like it, but it was showing on the other side. It wasn't thick green or whitish that blip was. It was
Yeah.
hodgepodge. Did not work. So I'm like, well, this is interesting. Now I call again, folks, source upon source upon source. So I could tell you truthfully that I did the best job I could. I call
Mhm.
Space Labs, not to be confused with Elon Musk SpaceX, and I call Hewlett Packard. Am I speaking slightly slow enough?
No, you're speaking fine.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I call both departments. Now I'm a 56-year-old businessman. I know how business is. I know that crusty old men and women who've been in an industry forever are the best people sometimes to talk about with things you don't understand. This is in the
If
stock
they're
market.
engineers, absolutely.
Exactly.
The old
The old
schoolers.
car dealer that was a used car manager for 40 years. You don't think that guy doesn't know everything about the car? Okay. Get my point. And again, another Seinfeld moment. Hi, this is the physiological department of Hewlett Packard. How can I help you? Oh, there is. Is there someone in your department that's old and crusty? Nobody likes him. He or she's probably got an office in the corner. Nobody wants to talk to him because they're grumpy. LeakYou, my right hand to God. He goes, oh yeah. Hold on one second. Puts me on hold. Again, the second time I do the phone cover, I'm like, holy shit, this is working. Jon Stewart, you're magic. All of a sudden I get, hello. Oh, and also I'm 14 years old selling magazine subscriptions. Hello,
Yeah.
sir. My name is Jon Stewart. I have a question. Yeah. Have you ever seen a physiological monitor, no matter what it is, echocardiogram, oxygen, the EKG? Have you
Mhm.
ever in your life seen a physiological monitor where the blip, and I used to know the technical name of that blip, where that blip goes up and down, stays there, and is not horizontal? Never. Okay. Have you ever heard in 40 years of going to conferences about physiological monitors? I know I sure you've talked about stuff or seen stuff in the conceptual phase, right? Maybe this is
Mhm.
he said, no, never. It's from 1952, the first start of a oscilloscope or whatever. Folks, I don't know the right.
Right.
Today, there is no physiological monitor where the blip stays in place and just jumps up and down. He was very specific with me. I said, well, that's really interesting. He goes, why? What are you looking at? I'm like, I'm looking at a very strange government video, and it's a physiological monitor, I think, but the blip stays in place and just goes up and down, not horizontal. LeakYou, third bombshell. He goes, well, that sounds like a one-off. I'm like, what? He goes, a one-off. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
one-off. He's like, well, if you're trying to figure out something, you're trying to solve a
Mhm.
problem in the scientific community or any kind of community. Heck, and he said this: I build houses for a living, and I have a problem with that, and I can't find any device to help me. What most people do is design and
Mhm.
build a one-off device that you've specially built to handle a certain situation.
Yep.
Folks, my right hand to God. I said, would you build a very unique physiological monitor to monitor a very weird heart of an extraterrestrial creature? My right hand to God. He goes, oh yeah, that's exactly what I would do, because you got nothing here that's gonna do that. And
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, this is
That's like
not.
your third holy shit
Yeah,
moment.
I'm like, right. I'm like, this is maybe not gonna be as hard, and maybe I don't have. Maybe this isn't a big deal. Hang up the phone again. I want to be the credible journalist investigator.
Mhm.
I call Space Labs, SpaceX. Space Labs is Elon Musk. Listen to this one. And Space Labs gets me on the phone, and they're like, this is the company that made every monitor for NASA. Okay. Can I do my job? And
Mm.
these are two companies, other than IBM a little bit, from the 90s till
Mhm.
2019, made physiological monitors. Same thing. Do you have anybody very experienced in the engineering department of monitors? Yes, hold on. Bum, 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 bum. Not an old guy, not young. I asked the same thing. He said, well, a cathode ray tube could not do that bouncing. And he said, man, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never heard or seen of that at any point in my life. He goes, dude, you got a pen and paper with you? I'm like, yeah. He goes, take down this number. He gave me a name of a Spanish guy. He is a salesman of physiological monitors.
Oh, wow.
Call him. Tell Mario that I'm sending. Okay. Mario, hi, my name is Jon Stewart. I'm an investigator and blah, blah, blah. Mario, how long have you been selling physiological monitors? Oh, man, since like 1969 or whatever he said. Said, Mario, have you ever heard or seen a monitor where the blip goes up and down? And folks, I'm coming to the end of the monitor, but this is the thrust of my investigation. And he said, no. I said, have you ever seen it at a trade show? Have you heard about it in the wind with other guys when you're having a beer, all your other salesmen? He's like, no, the monitor, the blip always goes horizontally across the screen. Boom, hang up the phone. I'm like, okay. I'm in my car now. And I'm like, wait a minute. United States Senator snaps my head off. I've got a video that isn't Hollywood produced. They're not trying to hide anything. I've got a widow that says her husband was creepy, mysterious, never talked about anything to do with his occupation. And I have a team of PhDs and 2 physiological monitor engineers from the only companies that made physiological monitors. Everybody telling me we don't know what you're looking at. And that has not been manufactured. Okay. Wow. You can say they're all lying. It's the grand hoax of Jon Stewart, whatever. I'm telling you what happened. So now this is 19. Now I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, again, I've got to break into a facility. Now I'm going on the deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm tenacious. I said, now I got to break into a facility 30 years in the past. It's the most high-tech, secure facility in the planet. And I'm probably thinking that 95% of my witnesses, I found out correctly, yes, are dead.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it the try. So park, it's a great, cute little story that should be part of a movie. I'm on the park bench and my black lab is flushing bushes, trying to get birds to scare up or squirrels and everything. Again, folks, I know a lot of people haven't heard of me because I've not been an investigator in the forefront of ufology. I'm Bob Lazar in 1989. So I'm like, well, how? I don't know anybody. I don't have any names. I don't have numbers. I mean, maybe I can write some names down from documentaries. And I'm watching my dog and I'm like, wait a minute, bird dogging. This is what I have to do. I got to go out and bird dog. I got to put myself out on podcasts or YouTube shows and try and get this journey, this investigation to metastasize, the Oprah effect, put it out in the airwaves. Maybe somebody that watches me, because I heard this from several people. If you think the military or certain low-level members of the FBI, the military, don't watch paranormal conspiracy shows on YouTube and Apple and podcasts, you are fooling yourself. I could get someone to come forward. So I go on Carrie Cassidy's show, Project Camelot. This was 5 years ago. She gives me a name of a guy named Andrew Burlington in England. He was stiff with me for like 3 months, testing. And you'll hear in my investigation, this happened a lot of people that wanted to help me that tested me for months. So finally, Andrew warms up to me, and he's on Facebook under Victor Nevada. We've had a falling out of a disagreement over, and I got a witness wrong, or I put words in her mouth, and I am admitting that. But I was excited because I thought she was the real Victor's ex-girlfriend.
Right.
But anyways, we'll go into that too. But finally writes back, he said, you really need to just look at my Facebook page. Look at the videos where he slow-mos the video frame by frame. And what he shows is absolutely jaw-dropping. The orbital socket around the creature, remember, this is a low-budget, second-tier video production company in Southern California, putting this on the UPN network through Reicher Entertainment. And according to Sean Morton, who was a producer, Reicher didn't have the money to pay their employees for the first 4 episodes of Strange Universe. So if you think this is a Daddy Warbucks, Steven Spielberg operation, it ain't. And that is an indication that this is government sponsored. Okay, folks, because no one had the pockets that it took. What we have been told to create that doll back in
Right.
1991, no one, or 96, because that's when the documentary came out.
Mhm.
No one had the upwards of $150,000 to create that doll. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So,
And you see the skin moving as the
so
beans.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, keyboard warriors. And I'm being combative, but forgive me. Yes, there is pixelation that I have seen close up where the pixels look like skin movement. Andrew shows the eye goes from round to round on the top and flat on the bottom. From flat on the bottom back to round again. For the eye, for the orbital skin, I would say the orbital socket skin to go up and down in strange in small, minute
Hmm.
movement. So I ask everyone out there, we're faking this video, right? We have to go, we're hoaxing this video. We're the worst producers in the world because the
Yep.
doctors don't have biohazard suits. They got their short
Mhm.
sleeve scrubs. LeakYou's pissed off because we've got, we've got an alien that's brown and round
It's supposed
eyeballs.
to be gray.
Yeah. And now we heard the eye skin movement, microscopic skin movement would take like $3,000 to $7,000. So with no money and people not seeing this until 30 years later, you're telling me that the producers then wrote a check
Thought
to the
about that?
flex people for another $7,000 to make that eyebrow move because Andrew Burlington's going to see that 30 years from now. Does that even sound? I mean, do I sound like an idiot even saying that? I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
You got to go on Andrew's website on Facebook.
I
Again,
will.
I totally give Andrew and Jaime Musan, the journalist in Mexico.
I love Jaime Musan. I just wish he'd
Love him.
get English subtitles on his YouTube channel
Right.
so I could watch it.
Yeah, these two men were the ones that kind of pushed me off the cliff. And the bird had a flap. Jon Stewart had to flap his wings. So never failed to give those two credit. So now I get a hold of Jaime Musan. Jaime, I heard you did research on the monitor. He said, John, I took the monitor to 13 heart surgeons, thoracic cardio surgeons. Maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. But cardiologists, 13 of them all said that monitor is showing a cardiac arrhythmia, a cardiac event. And he goes, and six of the surgeons have said that creature's cough is syncing up perfectly with the blip going up in distress.
Interesting.
And they don't understand how a puppeteer could move the creature in sync with the guy doing the laser beam, because remember, we're hoaxing this.
Right.
The guy with the laser beam moving it up and down. So these two are in cahoots? Come on. I mean, come on. I mean, let's do the Occam's razor. The simplest solution is usually the correct one.
Mhm.
So now, again, McCain, the PhD guys, the wife, the engineers, Andrew Burlington, Jaime Musan. I'm like, what am I getting into here?
Something deep.
After then the trail went dead. I got Andrew Burlington. Now I know something is afloat. So I'm going to get the dates right because, God forbid, Jon Stewart doesn't get date rights. And so it is Memorial Weekend 2021. Very important I get these dates correct. I go on Jeff Rentz. I don't know who has children out there, but do you ever swear on their souls? And if you did, you'd have to be telling the truth. Correct?
Absolutely.
I am swearing, and I shouldn't, on my children's souls. 3 days before the Jeff Rentz interview, where I am going to bring, and I am writing this to Jeff, I'm going to bring this information about this alien interview out to the public. And I've been communicating with Jeff for like 3 years, giving him tidbits. And I'm writing these very hyperbolic emails that the world is going to know what's going on. My wife and I are in the UP, Upper Michigan. Folks, you have Lower Michigan to the right of Lake Michigan. And then above Wisconsin is another Michigan called Upper Michigan. I'm not even being funny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Know what Upper Michigan is. We're at our summer home in Upper Michigan. I make a turn onto a gravel road. My iPhone does a blip, a blue, white, and then it goes back to like my regular screen. And I go to text or email Jeff Rentz back. I'm going to be specific here. All of my read but not deleted emails from 4 servers. My dad's AOL, because I get his email for business, my AOL, iCloud, and Google. all were wiped off my phone. The read but not deleted emails. I can send a screenshot to people. The oldest email I have is 5/21 or 2 days before Memorial Day on 2021. All these great emails of my uncle's pictures in Vietnam who died and stuff like that. And of course, the investigation. So I go
Wow.
on the program with Jeff Rense. We do a great interview. Andrew Burlington takes the interview and puts B-roll in it and pictures and overlays. And, everybody's on the same page. It's just doing a great job. And I get an email, and I've called him different names. I think the best name is called the chairman. I get an email, and the email address is numbers. LeakYou, we've talked about this today. And he simply says, I heard your interview on Jeff Rense. I was very impressed. You seem to be, a legitimate investigator trying to do the best job you can. And I'd like to chat with you further in the future. Okay. I don't hear from him for a month. Remember this.
Right. Yeah.
I'm getting monthly emails from him. Now I'm not going to Da Vinci Code this. I'm not
Right.
Robert Langdon, so I'm not going to tell you the one secret. He gave me like a puzzle, like a wording puzzle to solve, to see what kind of intellect I had. But I'm not going Robert Langdon on. So next month I get an email, and it's just hey, how's the investigation going? And I'm being guarded because was this guy with military? Is this guy an insider? Is it just whoever? And next month, it was the 9th month, and we started building up a repertoire of conversations. And I open up my email. It's Friday. I'm at it's like when Kennedy got shot. I'm at the Southland Lincoln Oasis outside of Gary, Indiana, in Illinois, though. And I open up my email, and it says from the horse's mouth. And I open it up, and my hand starts shaking. I see 5 names of military men because it's captain, vice admiral, captain, doctor. And I'm like, holy shit. It's got the date of that filming, which Victor got wrong, which I feel Victor purposely
Yeah.
said wrong to distance himself from ever
Mhm.
being anywhere in that facility. And my hand is shaking. It's like, it's like you're seeing, I can't describe it. It's an elation. It's a voyeurism thing. Like, am I allowed to see these men's names? And I'm like, wait a minute, they didn't do anything.
Like the only person in the world that has that information
Well,
at that moment too.
the only civilian at this point, I think.
Right.
So now I tell my wife, I'm like, I got the email. I know everyone's names. She's like, all right, come home. So I call my lawyer. He goes, send me a copy. I'll put it in the vault. I mean, you have to be careful because I don't know where this is going. So I send a copy to my lawyer, his secretary, Melissa. She puts it in his vault so he has one. So I go home and I start vetting the names because, again, I'm trying to do my job. I just don't take an email for granted. I'm not an
That's
idiot.
right.
Yeah. So the first name, first name is a Colonel blah, blah, blah. Okay. I go on the internet, retired at the time of the filming. I'm like, well, this is a hoax. That's it. Jon Stewart's been punked. Now I look in his bio. He, after his military career, became a contractor for TRW. Now I go on Google. I know TRW, I'm a car dealer. They did credit reports. They did a lot more than credit reports. They did contour mapping for the United States government. They are so neck deep in black projects that they rub elbows with EG&G Dynatren, Raytheon, and Lockheed. So I'm like, holy shit, he was a contractor at the time. And that's why he was in that room. I go to the next guy. Rear Admiral, blah, blah, blah. I Google it. The Wikipedia page comes up with his picture. And it's from the 80s, and I'm getting jeebies. Like, and a lot of UFO people won't tell you their inner self. They're real low. This is what happened. I'm not like, I was starting to get creeped out. I'm like, do I have the right to? And a very distinguished vice admiral with intelligence credentials, if I can.
Yeah.
He's going to come back to this whole journey real soon.
Mm-hmm.
Again, vetting everything I can. Captain blah, 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 naval intelligence, Wikipedia. It's a picture from the 80s, his naval Class A dress uniform on, retired vice admiral. I'm like, well, that's it. Hoax. I've been duped. This guy didn't even know what his rank is. He's a vice admiral. I'm talking to my friend 4 minutes later. He's like, dummy, that report obviously must be from when the tape was stolen. That was 91. He was probably a captain in 91. And then 30 years
Ooh.
later, I'm like, oh my God. He goes, that even proves it even more that it must have some provenance of being real, or at least using real people. He goes, how could you find out this guy was a captain in 91 and think of that, to write that down? I'm not that smart. Now, the next one is Dr. blah, blah, blah. And in parentheses, scientist question mark, like the DIA. I'm sorry, folks. This allegedly came right off a DIA report. And it didn't say theft, film theft. It was called an unauthorized viewing. How could I make that up? I don't even know but that's a great terminology, because theft, then everyone gets in trouble. So it says doctor or scientist. So I Google him. He's a doctor in Connecticut. Now, are you ready? Are you ready for bombshell number 5? The doctor's name, who is still living, practicing in Connecticut. What do you think he did in 1991? Now, remember, this alien is coughing. It's having a respiratory issue.
Don't tell me pulmonary.
Okay, pulmonary issue. Yeah, yes, ma'am. I Google him. I get his office. He's got the lab coat on. He's the doctor. What did he do? I get his bio. In 1991, he worked for the VA. Hello. And what did he do for the VA? He was a pulmonologist.
Wow.
Could you even think of
You couldn't.
putting down that you really don't know him, because there was the question mark. You thought he was a scientist. Now, then we go to the doctor from California who's dead. And I've given you that story, so we can save some time. I talked to his wife, his widow. He never talked about his time in the Army Medical Corps. And John, now I know why. Then we go down, and I can't say this yet because I don't want to Robert Langdon this. You people, you folks, you kind folks that are listening and viewing, I just don't want to take this into the Da Vinci Code. But there were the interpreters, there were 2 of them, and they had a vocation. Am I kind of alluding? And it's a weird place where they had this vocation. And it's very funny because Victor does say that the telepath program was a joke. And that they were getting people one step higher than 1-800 charlatans on late night TV. Now, a second whistleblower, and I'm not jumping forward. Let's just talk about these 2 telepaths.
Yeah.
Here's the conversation. I'm splicing. But you know something, John? This is a whistleblower. You know something, John? There were 2 men. They were so adept at getting information from these creatures. This is verbatim. This is a verbatim conversation, that they would sit down in the chair in front of the being, and they would turn back in like 3 seconds. Oh, it's the Pleiades that he's from. And he says that the room that he's in is not dark enough. Oh, and by the way, he doesn't really want to have communication with the guy that was before. And he said it was incredible. The military brass were awestruck that these 2 men
And
of
it's all
vocation.
telepathic. There's a glass casing between these telepaths in this being.
That's correct. And they call it thought projection. Was not called telepathy. It was thought projection. You didn't consciously think of what was in your brain. I've been told it was just in your brain.
It just gets pushed in there.
So here are the names of 2 people, a whistleblower, who I think was giving me third-party information, is backing up what this email said. And I'm like, this happened a lot in my investigation, where a guy with information from the 60s is repeating what a guy in the 90s is saying. They've never met. They've never been on YouTube. They don't know each other. And this kind of stuff was really interesting, how things overlap. So now I'm like, oh my God. So I see the date. It's the wrong date that Victor gave. So I'm going to give you the bombshell, because this is another bombshell.
Oh
Victor
my
said,
gosh.
well, it was an electronic form that I snuck it out of S4. And I'm thinking to myself, this is where I'm going to prove it hoax. You go in S4 underground, and you go out as for butt naked. I'm going to be base here. That means a male medic sees your penis, you spread your butt cheeks, and if you're a female medic sees your vagina, your butt cheeks, you are naked. You go naked in, you go naked out. You are not smuggling a CD-ROM.
Mm.
And I said, this is where I'm going to prove the hoax. If I just keep going, there is no way anything is let out of this facility. Although Victor does say, and I believe him, I have no facts with this. I have no testimony to this other than Victor. But for him to say this on camera, and he's pissed about it, that they had this no personal objects allowed in this lab, yet people were still bringing in, little elf dolls or, the little caveman with the, Rubik's cubes and stuff like that. And that really pissed Victor off, the lack of that protocol. But there ain't nothing getting out of that facility. Nothing. Except you and your uniform and your weighed. And what you ate for dinner or lunch is weighed. And the contents missing are weighed to make sure that you have, 0.5
I've heard
pounds.
this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've heard
So
this, and Dolce and other facilities too.
you're not getting out of thumb driving the crack of your ass, but I have to say this. And because if I can't be credible if I'm going at it trying to prove it's real, I'm
Mhm.
credible if I'm trying to prove that it's a hoax. I believe so.
Mhm.
So now I'm reading down in the facility. Well, I found out how the tape was removed. It was Ocean's 11. Remember how Ocean's 11, the casino, let the money be wheeled out of the casino?
Yes.
So it simply says the interview was terminated due to the creature having a medical issue. Verbatim, a United States Air Force policeman then escorted the U.S. Air Force cameraman back to the Groom Lake Photo Lab. Didn't say Area 51, to the Groom Lake Photo Lab, where 3 days later, why would you say 3 days later? Just tell me, but this is from the report. And military people and scientists are specific. This is something that I've learned. 3 days later, 2 copies were made. Okay, here we go. Here's I'm being Agatha Christie here. One copy was placed into a GSA burn bag. I didn't even know what the GSA is. I now found out it's a Government Services Administration. These are the people that do the trash, mop the floors. It was taken into a GSA burn bag, and that is how it left Area 51.
Huh.
The reporter trying to be the there ain't nothing leaving Area 51. I have spoken to 3 people who had very basic jobs at Area 51, and they all said, oh, yes, you can. There were various days and various security people, folks, don't believe me. Go vet it yourself, where you could smuggle out things in your pocket. They didn't look through your gym bag, and I'm alluding to something. They didn't look in your gym bag very carefully, and there were certain days with certain guards that were lax. I mean, we're human. This is, they're not going,
Get used to seeing someone every day. Yeah.
Exactly. This is Area 51. This is not this underground, high-tech facility. It's Area 51. We're testing the stealth and, and I'm being glib, but this is what the indication that I got. So I'm like, okay, now I know how it was let out. Well, we're going to burn this. And it's the cameraman's the hero. And I don't know, and I'm not going to blow anything here, but we have still don't know what his name is. It was the cameraman who then, according to the DIA report, and I'm going to say his name, but there's nothing on him in the internet except his birth and his tombstone. His name was Joseph Yeager, and find out it's Joseph Yeager Jr. And he was from Texas, and he was the person, according to the DIA, he's not Victor, but I thought he wasn't. I'm going to get you into my big bluster that got Andrew Burlington pissed at me. But that Joseph Yeager helped the United States Air Force cameraman sell this to Rocket Pictures. And another report came in and said, we believe that Yeager was Victor, because I asked the gentleman, is he Victor? So now I'm on Joseph Yeager. I am going the deep dive. I find that he did a Nicolas Cage Leaving Las Vegas, where he sold his family home. I think that's good investigative work.
Oh, very much
Sold his
so.
family home, moved to a vineyard in San Antonio. I guess they have them. It's like a bed and breakfast vineyard. Hooked up with his girlfriend, and he drunk himself to death, died homeless. And I found all this out through research. And
Oh,
so now
wow.
so now I have the ex-girlfriend. She lives in Kansas. I have relatives in Kansas. I fly to Kansas. This is my only bluster of the investigation. I'm like, I have Victor. This is Victor. And she did acknowledge that
Mhm.
her ex-boyfriend had something to do with this tape. I am the one to Andrew that said, "Oh, it's Victor. It's Victor's girlfriend." And I screwed up. I screwed up, and I'm a
It
man
happens.
to admit it. That I jumped the gun. I didn't put words in her mouth, but I put assumptions in her speech, and I was wrong for that. So I publicly I want
And
to
you own
apologize
it.
to Victor
Yeah.
Burlington because I
Yeah.
did not lie. But I'm a hyper nutcase, and I'm excited. And I finally thought I had this huge breakthrough. So I apologize about that. But she did tell me that my ex-boyfriend had something to do, she said, with that film. So I found that interesting. So now I'm like, I got the name Victor. Well, what's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm into like $5,000 at this point of my money. My wife's like, you got to sell this to Netflix. You know how to do reality shows. They were going to do your car dealership one time. True story. So I get the producer that was going to do the car dealership. I said, you're not going to believe this, but I have proof that the government retained and interrogated aliens at an underground base. I hit him the investigation. Blah blah blah. I get the first part of the weirdness, and it's like 2 weeks and I don't hear from him. And I write him back. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I've been trying to email you, but my Wi-Fi in my computer for the past 2 weeks has been haywire, and I've
Ah,
had people in here 3 times. Okay, this is an Emmy award-winning producer. I've had people in here 3 times to fix the bug or what's wrong. They can't find it, but I've got it now. I've got it working now. We sign a deal for him to take a sizzle reel, take it to Netflix or Hulu, and I'm going to show the world. I found Victor, and all of a sudden he goes, I can't do it. I got to drop it. I have a special project. They paid me up front for a 3 documentary picture deal in Germany. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. So I,
ah.
now what do I do? But hey, I discovered this. So let me slow down a little bit here. So now, again, I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to drive this freaking thing home. I
Mhm.
didn't stop investigating for you people. I said to myself, this is great. Anybody could tell me Joseph Yeager.
Mhm.
Okay. There's a lot of people without any bios on the internet. Okay. What else could you do? What else can you do? Now remember, this is a I got the From the Horse's Mouth report in March. And so it was, I'm guessing, I don't remember the date, but it was about 6 to 2 months later, I had my wife contact Rick Doty on Facebook. There is no bombshell here. And Rick Doty has been a block of granite for this investigation with helping me with the nomenclature, the vernacular,
Mhm.
backing up that Doty was the one, I'm sorry, that told me you're going to be a hero in the UFO community. It's S2. It's S2. It's not S4. Doty's, now listen, the misinfo guy. I've never been down
Right.
in S4 levels. I've only been to the second level of Annex 2. The only live alien as part of a government facility that I've seen was on closed circuit TV. Okay, Rick, is the Victor fiasco video real? Of course it is. I'm like, okay, changing my life right now. He's like, why would I lie to you? He goes, if I was going to lie to you, I would tell you that it was a hoax. And oh God, and I know the producer, Doty's goes, and that was not filmed at S4, John. That was filmed at the alien housing complex under S2. I'm like, the alien what? He goes, the alien
Housing
housing.
complex?
That's what he goes, you know what? If I'm lying, Dan Burrish, and he goes, and I don't know Dan Burrish, but Dan Burrish gave the entire blueprint to Michael Schatt. I'm like, I've talked to Michael Schatt before. He goes, go look at those blueprints. You tell me if there's a viewing gallery. Well, sure enough, I look at Dan Burrish, who was supposedly an S4, Project Aquarius, with Michael Schatt, great guy, lives in Illinois. I don't see any viewing gallery. I'm like, Doty's telling me the truth. Doty is telling me the truth. Beautiful. I'm matching up information. And So Rick, help me with the nomenclature. What, what did this? Doty did not know Yeager. Doty knew vaguely the vice admiral on the list. Knew nobody else on the list. Why would you lie about that? Wouldn't you say,
Right.
"Oh, I know him, and I know him"? And then Doty goes, "John, Wendell Stevens is part of this too." I'm like, "What, hoax?" He's like, "No, Victor went to Wendell Stevens, befriended him, just like Connor O'Ryan, the Navy SEAL. And Wendell Stevens at one point had that 16 millimeter film." I'm like, "Wait a minute, it wasn't VHS?" He said, "No. What you saw was 16 millimeter film," very important here, folks, "that was transferred to VHS by Victor. Andrew Burlington has a watermark of a Gateway computer in 96. Now, Andrew thinks it was done CD-ROM. I've been told by now 3 people it was a 16 millimeter film transferred to VHS. He said the government filmed every important thing on 16 millimeter film. I'm not saying there was another camera in there, but it was 16 millimeter film that did slowly dissipate and go away and turn to VHS in the early 90s. But that 1991 video was 16 millimeter. And I said, "Well, what can you tell me?" He goes, "John, there's a couple of Victors." I'm like, "Rick, don't do this to me." He goes, "No, John, listen. I know the Victor you're talking about who spoke on camera." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "He's real." He goes, "But there was another person, actually like a cabal, that conspired to bring material out." Rick didn't say the film. Rick didn't material out
Material.
of S4. I said, "Rick, how could people get stuff out of S4? I mean, I went over the report with him. He didn't know any of the names, except that vice admiral. But he said, well, there were official clusters of bundles of packets that were, like the bank money in Ocean's 11, that were, okay, this is the official moving of documents, blah, blah, blah." And he goes, and Wendell Stevens from Victor had a cache of documents that never got released. He said, "FOIA, this is Doty." He goes, "Do this. I'd be interested. Go to the FBI and FOIA." The FBI raided Bob Dean's, I'm giving you bombshells here, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Dean's bank vault at Paradise Valley, Arizona. Doty gives me the bank because Doty, is in the loop of intelligence.
He is, yes.
Wendell, and so he knows the story, So I'm like, okay, I FOIA it. I get an email back from the FBI. "You're not Bob Dean. We can't give you any information on Bob Dean." So Doty, and Andrew thinks that Doty gave me he didn't give me hardly anything. But Rick said, "Look, it's real. It's 16 millimeter." And he goes, "And I was driving with Wendell Stevens one day from the second Victor's house in Oceanside, California." I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to get to the second Victor." And he said, Wendell looked at me, he goes, "Victor is a brilliant scientist, but I wouldn't be friends with him for 5 seconds.
I get that from his interview.
Now, you can get that through the interview.
Yes.
But now his friend is saying that about him. Remember this for when I talk about the director, Jeff Broadstreet, because Jeff doesn't know any of what I have talked about. Okay. So now I'm like, what is Doty talking about? A second Victor, Oceanside, California. It's a couple of weeks later. I'm doing a deep dive on my computer. The wife's asleep to my right. And all of a sudden I think the website is Bible Apocalypse. It's from like 1993. It's like
old school. Yeah.
It's a horrible website. And I'm scrolling, and all of a sudden I see an email from 99. So, or maybe it was even earlier. I don't know the exact date, from a guy named Major Thomas Mack. And he's writing Bill Bossman, and it's taken right off a computer. This isn't hoaxer. And it simply says, "I was the project leader of Project Aquarius in S4. And and blah, blah, blah. I don't know the specific document you're talking about. Yes, Captain Danny Burrish was down there with me. You know what? You should also look up a guy. He was our counterintelligence officer. His name was Rick Doty. He's retired, but he's a New Mexico state trooper." I'm like, what am I reading?
Wow.
Now, still doing the layers of research. Now I scroll up. Thomas Mack's son sends a picture of his dad at Area 51 in 71, 73. It looks like a summer camp with white buildings and painted white rocks on a pathway. and it's Major Thomas Mack, and boom, I call up Doty. I'm like, who is Thomas Mack? He goes, oh, he goes, so you found the other Victor? I'm like, wait. He goes, well, listen to me, folks. He goes, Tom Mack was beloved. I said, it kind of seemed like that from his email. Doty goes, he was one of the most beloved military people that I've ever worked with, worked under. And Johnny was a great guy. And I said, well, I could see that from the email. And folks, I've been in pro wrestling, the car business. I'm 56 years old. I'm from Chicago. I know bullshit when bullshit walks. And Doty goes, what email? I said, the email from Thomas Mack. And Rick's like, what email? I said, do you not know that you're on an email in 1997 that Thomas Mack wrote a guy named Bill Bossman? And Rick's like, no, what did he say about me? I'm like, no, he complimented you that you were. He's like, oh, that's nice to hear, because I really like Tom, and I visited Tom in Oceanside, California. I said, is he the guy in Oceanside? And he's like, yes, he is the other guy. It was a group of 4 to 5 individuals that were disgruntled. It started with the Navy SEAL that went with Wendell Stevens in 1990 because his debit card wouldn't work, and he got pissed off, and he camped out at Jim Delatoso's house in Arizona, and it was some weird stuff. And so Rick Doty is like, it's known in the intelligence community. There was disgruntled people, that try to get stuff out. I look more on the Thomas Mack email, and I have information that could really embarrass the government. 2 years after that email, that email was from 99. A year later, Thomas Mack's dead of a cerebral hemorrhage.
Interesting.
Family said it's in the gene. So I'm being a legit researcher here. I could be hyperbolic and say, see, they're killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Family said that is a common ailment genetically in their family. So let's just leave it at that. So here we go. So now I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm trying to get my lineage here. So I'm like, Rick, thank you so much. He's like, look, if you need any help, just email me. He goes, I'm retired. I teach math online, which I thought was kind of
Really?
charming.
Rick
Like,
Doty teaches math online?
Yeah, I mean,
That's cool.
Kind of charming,
He's got so many incredible stories. I mean,
yeah.
wow.
So now I take the investigation to Don Schmidt, and Don Schmidt is one of these, 1962 B film noir, guys like a detective, and he's sitting in a Wisconsin restaurant reading the entire report, and his eyes are spinning like, watermelons on a slot machine. This is just an anecdotal story that I want to share with people. And he looked at me, he goes, you got to start being really careful now. You have crossed the line. And I don't trouble. He goes, but you have crossed the line now. If this is real, you have information that surpasses the Thomas Wilson memo, which I think a lot of people, know about. He goes, you have names. I've never heard of these people. This looks real. Just be careful. He gives me a 5-minute lecture of keeping my hands on the table wherever I'm out in public. I'm not to talk to strange women. That he believed that they would try and set me up with something.
Oh, yeah.
Don Schmidt is not creepy, but his 5-minute warning seminar, whistleblower warning seminar, which I appreciate that he told me, was creepy. Keep your hands on the thing. You don't talk to women. You're going to be in airports. People are going to come up to you and try and engage you. Don't talk to anyone. And if you talk to anyone, don't say anything. Be the. Wow. I walked out. I had the melons in my eyes, the slot machine eyes when I walked out of that. So Don gets back to me a week later. Don's got a very close contact in the Pentagon. Another not cute, but another weird anecdotal story. Listen to me. The colonel at the Pentagon, he goes, what does this kid do for a living? And Don's, kid, he's in his 60s. I'm in my 50s. It was nice to be called kid. He goes, he runs a family car dealership. He goes, you tell him this. The Pentagon's like that car dealership. In the front of the car dealership, were me and all my colleagues, we're selling cars and we're selling warranties and we're greeting customers and we're doing commercials. And he goes, but there's a hallway in this car dealership, and it's a really long hallway. None of us have ever been down it because we're not allowed to go down it. And if you ever do go down it, you're not to knock on the door. You're not to open the door at the end, and you're certainly not to ask any questions at the end. And I know you see people going in the back of the dealership, trucks and personnel. You are not to ask anything about that. He goes, you tell that kid, that's what my life was like at the Pentagon. I know something's going on. My colleagues who've been in Vietnam and are war heroes, they know what's going on, but we aren't allowed to ask or question it. It is beyond our grasp. And people are pissed off about it at the Pentagon. That's a verbatim story from a colonel at the Pentagon. So something to digest, that there is a little bloodless Civil War
Going
fraction,
on.
kind of West Side Story, Sharks and the Jets, taking place at the Pentagon. And this is a story
Wow.
that I keep hearing. So that was pretty good information from Don Schmidt, who's probably one of the most credible people and one of the nicest men in our community of researchers and investigators, and has been like an uncle to me. It just been a great guy with a tremendous amount of support.
Do you think any of that is possibly driving disclosure?
It is? And I'm gonna get to that, because
Okay.
that's another where I cross stories from two different people. So again, keep going. I don't care what Don Schmidt's guy said. Keep going. So now I'm like, well, I got to ask the only person that's met Victor face to face, the director, Jeff Broadstreet, who met him face to face twice. Right?
Yeah.
No one is coming forward saying, I met Victor. Wendell Stevens died, so I couldn't call him or contact him, to my regret. So I talked to Jeff Broadstreet, very guarded and Hollywood stiff,
Oh yeah.
There's a, your guy in England really bothers me too much. I don't need to know every step of the investigation. I'm like, okay, I get you. I said, Jeff, look, I'm desperate. Tell me something. He's like, I'm not, John, if I tell you anything, I'm violating a 35-year NDA, non-disclosure agreement. I said, but I've talked to Tom Coleman, the owner of Rocket Pictures, who also said that I didn't hire this team of animatronic guys. I didn't hire Victor. This guy came out of the blue. I'm going to say that. So I paid Jeff Broadstreet $500, and he tells me Victor's first name, which it's a weird first name, a very 1930s, 40s, 50s first name. Very weird, thank God, because that's how I was able to research this. But then he went on a little bit. And a Chicago detective, the first human being I ever talked to about this journey, his name was Sergeant Bill Giaconotti. He's been on CBS Sunday morning. He's a famous police officer in Chicago. He goes, John, never underestimate people's willing to talk. They want to talk. They want to talk. I don't care if it's about aliens or the mafia. People love to talk. So Jeff writes, I can tell you this. He appeared to be off the grid. He did not present a driver's license, but a tattered Social Security card, and he was a pain in the ass. He was very difficult to work with. Now, I got Wendell Stevens saying this. I got Rick Doty telling me Wendell. I've got the director that met him that is also saying this. So we've got some matches. Now I find a former FBI agent that was helping us on a serial murder documentary, which has been dropped. And he watches the Victor tape and for lie detection, truth deception. And I sent this to you, LeakYou, earlier today. An FBI analyst said about the Victor interviews. He watched all three of them, Art Bell and the two documentaries. I sense a high degree of stress. Okay. A high degree of stress. And Victor appears very pedactic. And I said, what is pendactic? And he said, pendactic is a behavior characteristic that is very common amongst scientists and engineers and scholars. John, when you're in the lab, it just can't be a dash of mercury and, 3 splashes of thallium. Scientists have to be specific.
Exactly.
And he said, and it's that personality. I said, give me an example. He's like, well, if I sent you out, to check the oil on the car, and you came back and you said, Dad, I checked around the car, it was fine. I didn't tell you to check around the car. I told you to check the oil. And that's all I told you to do. That type of personality trait. So I'm like, okay, this FBI guy is telling me that this Victor sounds legit to him. Now I go back and I ask Carrie Cassidy. I say, Carrie, you're an expert in whistleblowers. What did you make of the Victor? Now, Carrie didn't know that I talked to this FBI guy. She said the same thing. She's like, well, Victor had a dark sense of humor, and he did make some, dumb jokes about having a Bushmills shot because he was nervous, and something about food being brought down and the dumb waiters that he wouldn't talk about. And Carrie said, John, I've interviewed more whistleblowers than probably anyone in America, and she has. She's like, if Victor isn't a whistleblower, I need to go quit what I'm doing, because then I'm totally wrong. He had dark humor. You can tell he was stressed. You can tell he was guarded. Somebody said on the Art Bell interview, he was doing a lot of and I'm like, yes, he was giving answers and processing them in his brain to make sure that they weren't, revealing who he was.
Yes.
So I would be umming and Ralph Cramden too. So again, I'm 4 years into this. I can't find anyone that tells me it's a hoax. Now I start going into Hollywood. I've got about 19 people I know in Hollywood. Have you ever heard anyone had anything to do with this video, folks? The braggers of the braggers are in Hollywood. Pool parties, award ceremonies, after parties, sets. I did this. I worked with Kevin Costner. For no one in 30 years of any credibility to come forward to say, I did the catering, right? I did the accounting. I helped rent the studio for the B-roll. They made a fake alien video, a B-roll for the documentary. I hired the actors. I got the costumes. I'm the one that worked on. You mean to tell me
I painted the skin?
Had ever come forward 30 years later with that puppet to say, I'm pretty good, aren't I? Give me a freaking break. So I'm like, shit, I can't find anyone. Now I contact Sean Morton. Why did I not think of this sooner? Sean talked to Victor on the phone. He's talked to Connor O'Ryan, again, the Navy SEAL sentry that claimed he was down in S4. And Sean Morton said the same thing. John, there was no money. Reicher couldn't pay people. What you're seeing would have had to have cost $150,000, $160,000. They didn't, what do you think they paid Victor? They probably paid Victor $25,000. Listen to me, folks. Sean Morton, he goes, John, I was at Rocket Pictures the day Victor called. And I heard Tom Coleman, the owner, on the speaker phone say, Jeff Broadstreet, can you pick this up? Talk to this guy. So Victor called out of the blue. He wasn't an actor. He comes in, and Sean tells me Victor went to Fox Network on Sepulveda Boulevard. They couldn't guarantee his safety. They gave him the bum's rush. You can hear his impish story, how embarrassed he was on the Art Bell show. He walks across the street from Fox Studios, and there's a huge newsstand at Sepulveda, kitty corner from Fox. How could I make this up? Or Sean Morton make this up? Listen, he picks up Variety magazine. He's trying to sell a video to a production company. He sees the Tim Conway, the midget golfing, where Tim Conway would sit on his knees and play golf. And Rocket Pictures is selling this video, and he said, well, this is goofy enough. Maybe they'll listen to me. And that is how Victor got a hold of Rocket Pictures, through a magazine, a Tim Conway VHS tape that Rocket Pictures was selling in Variety. How about that for investigation?
That's
yeah. Isn't that interesting? Kudos to Morton. And let me tell you
kudos
about
to your investigation as well.
Don't listen to Sean Morton. Why? He's been investigated by the IRS. My dad's been investigated by the IRS, audited in 1988. My dad's the straightest shooting businessman in Chicago. And a lot of business people get investigated by the IRS. Does that make them to be total frauds?
No.
I was a blogger for 20 years, a con man in the professional wrestling industry. I faked injuries. I faked emotion. I faked my bio. I faked where I was born. I faked if I was mad at my opponent. I was a con man. Am I a con man now?
No.
Okay. Same thing with Doty. He's like, I was a misinformation. I was a counterintelligence officer. I was paid. This was my job.
They won't let him live. Like, they give him such a hard time.
He goes, nobody will let me live this down. I think this information has to come out. What? Because of what I did in the 80s? Now, all of a sudden, I can't give any information on the UFO phenomenon? It's crazy. So
insane.
So Sean Morton, I talk about my wife, Don Schmidt, Michael Carter, Reverend Michael Carter, who's on Ancient Aliens, my conciliaire through this whole journey, telling me this, don't do this, be quiet, don't yell at this. The angel, Sean Morton, my lowest points, it was Carrie Cassidy, Sean Morton, my agent, Sean West, that were like, keep going. Don't give up, keep going. And little funny story, Sean would tell me, Sean Morton has been a gem for this investigation. And I could not, with any conscience, not mention him talking to you. So now I have all this information, right? I'm going to have to start making my own documentary. I've got about 30 hours that I filmed, 30 to 40 hours that I filmed, but nowhere near what you would need to put a whole documentary together. So Scott Walter, and I have to be very careful here, and I'm not being hyperbolic or creepy or weird. I have to be very careful here, out of respect and out of legal. Scott Walter supposedly, which is true, has a contact that works for a alphabet agency with the government. And it took a year to have this man finally call me. Again, the vetting process, the slow roll. And this man is acutely aware of the alien phenomenon in his agency. Very nice gentleman. He goes by a literature name of a person in literature. I'm not being Da Vinci Code here, but he was one of my deep throats, but he really didn't tell me anything, but I'm going to throw another bombshell. So he said, I just want you to know a couple of things. Number one, next time someone sends you anything, here's what you ask them. Is this top secret? Is this classified information? Because if it is, don't send it to me. Great advice. Great advice. Okay. Number two, tell you when you can realize something is real from the film by the government. This STMP mark, the little mark where the minutes, seconds. He goes, yeah, VHS recorders have that, but motion picture, that started in the 30s in motion picture. He goes, when you see a video of a UFO or an alien, and it's got the STMP stamp, that's about 99% legit. I'm like, oh, that's great. He goes, John, I also want to I don't want to wreck your bubble because I don't know. He said, also remember, when the government wants to disseminate information to the public, sometimes they recreate the event, whether it be a landing, a video of a UFO, maybe an alien. He goes, I don't ever discount that can't be what your video is. I said, but it doesn't make any sense. They have people blocking the camera. There's no instructions on the screen of when an alien is in distress.
Right.
Well, that's your cause. And he goes, no, I'm just letting you know that oftentimes, in order to get plausible deniability, the government will film something and put it out, and then they can say, what's fake? We didn't violate anything. Very interesting. He goes, I'm going to give you one bombshell, just like Doty with S2. He goes, there's a new name for aliens in the government. I'm like, and he goes, and you will be the only person that knows this. And I'm like, this is awesome. And again, I'm an entertainer. So I've got, the next day I'm going to be on Good Morning America with George Stephanopoulos. And I'm going to be the Jeremy Coble, Bob Lazar, George.
Right. The Secure Team 10.
I'm such a dork. He goes, the new designation. Here we go, folks. Strap it on.
All right, here we go.
Saber. I'm like, okay, what is Saber? Saber is synthetic, astrobiological, extraterrestrial races. Now, there's more than Jon Stewart that knows that. That is, he said, if you want people at the Pentagon to start falling off their chairs, to start, doing a spit take like they're on Three's Company from the 70s in bed with their wife, you mention Saber and your heads will spin because nobody knows.
Say it again. Synthetic
astrobiological extraterrestrial races. This is what
that's incredible.
Many
John.
of the folks, I was the only one for 3 months that knew this. Okay,
wow.
Here we go. Here's the Da Vinci Code music starting. I said, so and so. Let's call him Gatsby because that's a name from literature. No, I didn't read the book. I saw the movie, so don't bother me. I was chasing women sophomore year. I wasn't reading The Great Gatsby. So I said, how could you come on my documentary if I make one? He said, okay, send me a list of your questions, everything about you and the cameraman. I'll give it to my commanding officer. And LeakYou, they were sensational questions. I mean, I was going to end the whole conversation. Are aliens real? Has the government since 1900 had any contact, retention, interrogated any kind of off-planet interdimensional being? Because they could escape if it was, well,
That's right.
they were interdimensional. That's why we told Jon Stewart no. So I was putting out some fire-breathing questions. He said, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow, the next day. A week, 2 weeks, a month. Now I'm getting into George Costanza panic, literally.
Mm-hmm.
6 weeks, 7 weeks. I'm texting Scott Walter, who is the most kindest, straight shooting guy that's ever been on TV. I'm like, Scott, what is going on? Scott's kind of not writing me back. There is a reporter, a national reporter. I'm not going to say the name or the gender. And I'm like, is because I connected that person with Gatsby too, because let's all do this together.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, she goes, oh shit, I said her gender.
That's okay. That's
That
okay.
reporter ghosts me. Now I'm shitting in my pants. I'm 276 pounds. I'm 6'1".
Oh, wow.
I don't, scare that easy. Now I'm like, oh my God. Now I write the letter, email to Scott. Scott, I'm a gentleman. I treated Gatsby with respect on every level. I haven't blabbed anything. I haven't told anybody anything. All I want to know is he alive? Is he all right? And am I all right? And a day later, I get this text message on the Signal app, which is encrypted,
Mm-hmm.
and it's from him. But you can tell someone wrote it for him. I'm just telling you my opinion.
Wow.
Mr. Stewart, I have been I don't know the vernacular. I have been commanded to have a cease and desist contact with you. I can no longer have any contact with you. I am respectfully asking you do not respond. You do not cut and paste this. You do not share this text message with anyone. You are on the list, comma, for your FOIA request, your overseas emails. Thank you, Andrew Burlington. And the nature of your questionnaire. Do not contact me anymore. Then, and then his name Gatsby, which wasn't his name. And then the creepy part happened. Below that was, I've never been in the military. Leak, you look like military coding vernacular. Does that make sense? Like
Mm-hmm.
VS221-373. By only authorization can this message be transmitted. And then you saw like another person. Oh, and in the text message was this cease and desist order does not come from my agency, but from an agency higher up. Oh, I'd be like, why is he higher up? Well, I don't want to go higher. I'm George Costanza. I don't want to be higher up. And I'm like, oh my God, shit. And my wife's like, yeah, see what you did.
Wow.
Yeah, true story.
That's
And
heavy.
other coding and other weird vernacular. And now, one of the reasons I think people continue to talk to me is because I do everything to the red letter, what a whistleblower tells me. If he wants me to go grab my daughter's, teddy bear and shake it out in this, I'm doing it. I do everything that they ask me, what they ask me not to talk about, what I can't talk about, who can I say that I talked to them. And I followed Gatsby's direction. I didn't cut and paste. I didn't share it with anybody. And like about 4 hours, it was gone. He was gone. I couldn't get him on my Signal app.
Wow.
It was truly a bizarre moment. And that was really my only kind of all the president's men, deep throat, like, your lives are, and that was very, very scary. Now, I've been told by Dr. Stephen Greer, I've been told by Gatsby himself, I've been told by Rick Doty that, eliminating people stopped when the Cold War was over, that they were so, and this is what I've been told. I know there's going to be people writing me, no, you don't understand, that was a hit, but that was what I've been told by multiple people, that we were so paranoid in the Cold War that we took extraordinary means when someone was going to get out some sort of information or technology that can help us overcome and win the Cold War, and
Mm-hmm.
that does not anymore. But what does happen is they assassinate your character, and then in the
Yep.
olden days, then they assassinate you. So um, I was told by Carrie that, look, you obviously don't, obviously you pay your taxes, you haven't been in trouble with the law, you're not a typical wrestler that's, got 14 divorces and drug charges and DUIs. And I'm not saying I lived a clean life or I'm a perfect person. I am anything but a perfect person.
Oh yeah.
But so that made, and then Dr. Greer said, Dr. Greer, who's like this brainiac, regardless of what people say or don't say, or he is like the brainiac. I'm like UFOs for dummies. He starts talking and I'm like, this guy is like an encyclopedia. He said, look, he said, a while back, yes, you'd have to be worried. He goes, but there's no money in gray aliens. I'm like, what? He's like, there's no money in the grays. Lockheed and Raytheon, and Bigelow, they're not making money off of ET, tissue samples. They're making money off the craft and the
Oh
technology
yeah.
and whatnot. Yeah. So that was Greer kind of put Dr. Stephen Greer, by the way, another guy who's just been, you email him, boom, email back. That's all you're looking for when you're doing this and you're all alone and your ass is twisting in the wind in the middle of the field. You just look for a guy like Greer, Doty, Don Schmidt, Mike Carter, you to reach out. How you doing? Hey, we support you, so on and so forth. That's all you look for. You don't look for to be patted on the back or be held on everyone's shoulders. So anyways, now what was the, oh God, there's so much after that. So now I'm like, okay, now I have this information. Now a production company gets a hold of me. Yes, we're gonna start doing a sizzle reel. You've got, as Bob Lazar says, it's the biggest story in humanity. So now
Absolutely.
I go to a little jump backwards. I go to Havana on a lead. My stepson and I. And my son's getting cigars, and I'm sitting in the fountain area of Old Havana. Never go to Old Havana. And a woman comes out to me. She goes, "Oh, you're what everyone's talking about." We were there the third day Americans could go to Cuba. And my son was wearing a Chicago Bulls baseball hat, and they were just going wild, like he was a celebrity. "Oh, you're the guys from Chicago Bulls, and
Wow.
blah blah blah." And I just felt weird, and I don't know if she was a prostitute, CIA, Cuban, and I don't know, but it was weird. And maybe she just was a local, but I have had a ringing in my ears since 2016. Thank you, the UFO world. And
Wow.
my ENT can't figure it out. So if you don't think that, and my story is not to, feel sorry for me, but my story is, if you don't think that there's not collateral damage in all of this, I mean, think of the hours that I spent away from focusing on my wife, with my wife, or my daughters, Kim and Khloe Kardashian, I call them, and who are in college. This took a lot of family time away from my family. So there was a lot of weirdness. The first time, another story, I was going to show my family the entire alien video. We walked to the TV room, to the computer. My daughter, Allison, gets a Snapchat instant message from a person she's not friends with. "Do you believe in aliens?" At that very moment. I called Chad Kalick, Mr. No Face producer, Chad Kalick, nicest human being in the world. He's like, "John, I investigated ghosts for 20 years. I've never had any weirdness in my life. I started investigating aliens, and in 1 week, my life electronically went haywire." He goes, "I can put you on the phone with my wife." And he goes, "And it's going to happen to you. Mark my words." There was anybody that's had more of a prophecy that has turned into prediction, like Chad's prophecy. So we are down, because of the first name, to two candidates for Victor. They are both scientists, and I don't think anyone is going to be mad that, first of all, none of the names on the report or Victor's name, you have never heard of them. I will quote Linda Moulton Howe, who has seen the whole report. "Oh my God, you have gold." "What do you mean I have gold?" She's like, "You have gold here. Why?
Wow.
I've never heard of any of these people." She's like, "John, in the UFO community, when somebody comes with names who are legit intelligence or military people, and you can show the provenance and the background of them, you have gold here. She's like, you have gold here. I totally believe this report. So very interesting. So, but I'm here to tell you that there is, other than my bizarre journey, there, and when I went to New York to be interviewed by a national newspaper, I won't go any further. I wet a towel and put it under the door at night. Maybe I thought they were, smoke me with. I've been so paranoid at times that I don't trust anything. So I have been very careful and just diligent, but there's not going to be any big like, oh, it was, behind the viewing gallery was President Bush or something like that.
Right, right.
Let me other weirdness of this. Victor has the Italian word is yoch. It's like a gripe, a grievance with Don Rumsfeld. And Victor says, again, appreciate what I've done for this investigation and for you people and for me. We're a team. Victor says, find out where Rumsfeld was on March 23rd, 1998. So I found out. I called his foundation. He wasn't in the military. And I get a weird, creepy email. Mr. Stewart, Mr. Donald Rumsfeld was at his house in Teos, New Mexico on March 23rd, 1998, which was Easter Sunday, having a lovely dinner with his family. Okay, thank you. Got that.
Wow.
My little file. I did what Victor asked. I found where Donald Rumsfeld was. Now, I'm, every day I'm researching on the internet. Teos, New Mexico, Dulce base. Okay, I don't know what I think of Dulce, and I don't. So I'm not going to, and I've been told you do not go there. So I'm not going there. However, Don Rumsfeld lived in my area, which is called the North Shore of Chicago. It's where all the John Hughes movies were filmed, the ivy-covered houses and, Northwestern University, that area. I live in one of the cheap houses, so I'm not bragging. But so Don Rumsfeld goes from this ivy-colored institutions of the North Shore, is a congressman, moves to Georgetown, spends his whole life in the ivy-colored, leaves changing Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden moves to Teos, New Mexico in the desert. Does that make any sense?
No.
Does that job? Maybe he has rheumatoid arthritis? Okay.
No.
So now,
not even for warmer weather.
Right. Now I see a weird page on Teos, like an insider typing something. That's my vernacular. And it says, about once a month, the group that runs Dulce meets in Teos, New Mexico. I'm not putting two and two together, but you can certainly put two and two together. Why does Victor have such a problem with Donald Rumsfeld? You want to talk about creepy? I was going to a church on the North Shore, this church about 5 years ago. The parking lot is crowded. Total George Costanza moment. I'm swearing I'm going to church. Yeah. I pull into the church. It is the church where she's having a baby. The wedding scene from that movie was filmed. Beautiful church, beautiful people. I've been going there for 5 years. It's lovely. It's such kind people. 3 weeks ago, I'm in the hallway after going to the bathroom, getting back ready to go into the church vestibule. I look on the donor board, Mr. and Mrs. Donald Rumsfeld, parishioners donated. And I'm like, I ended up at Don Rumsfeld's church. Okay,
that's so creepy.
That the creep, now you can play the Da Vinci music. And I just stood there for 5 minutes. I'm like, John, and Carrie Cassidy warned me of this 5 years ago. Carrie Cassidy's words. She goes, do you ever think to yourself? She goes, because I think you will eventually start to realize maybe to some degree you were chosen to bring this out. And I don't believe in that. I'm looking people in the face. I don't believe in that. But damn, you could sure make some sort of argument that this is beyond coincidence, and creepiness. The people that overlapped and so again, one other thing that I've been faulted. He keeps telling us the documentary's coming out on Netflix. I never realized the glacial speed of Hollywood. Okay. And I'm sorry, but when it comes out, it comes out. I hopefully, even if I have to do it myself in a crappy documentary where I'm sitting there telling the story like this with B-roll, folks, I will get this information out with the names. And I'm not worried about holding on to the names because 90% of them are dead and they did nothing wrong. I'm not exposing somebody for murder or
Right.
for, it's murder. It's criminal for the money that
Mhm.
has been spent. But other
And the
than that,
fact that they're hiding this from the American people,
exactly. Exactly. So, I'm not worried. And again, people have told me you're not, this is not as hyperbolic as you think it is. But the names will come out once we illegal and once we get rolling on the documentary. And, I said this is I'm like cousin Eddie from Chris, Family Vacation. It's this thing is the gift that keeps on giving. 4 days ago, I'm on YouTube. This is my last story, talking about no one is debunking it for me. I see David Oates, who does reverse speech, which I happen to believe in. I had a college professor that believed in it, and it says the 1997 Victor alien interview. Victor is analyzed. I'm like, oh shit. It's gonna get I am a fraud when they play it backwards. I'm fake. Puppet or something.
Yeah.
And he starts playing it, and Victor says, it's from the Pleiades. It's in my head, thought projection. And he said one other thing about the creature's comfort. And David Oates, the expert who really calls into question, this is David Oates, not me, Lazar's story, David Wilcox's, some of his information, um, Hoagland, the Mars guy, he
Mhm.
calls into question. What does he say about Victor? What does the reverse speech guy say about Victor? This man is telling the truth. And I totally believe with this analysis that Victor is telling us the truth about this alien interview. So that's what I
And
call Carrie Cassidy. And now we're here with
now you're here at
what,
LeakYou.com. Well, we're underground a little bit, but we're working on, trying to get a little bit, above ground. But this is something that I've talked about for
right.
years. So, I mean, I was a 19-year-old young woman when that alien interview dropped, and I've been just as mesmerized by it like you. But it's incredible hearing your investigation, everything that you've done. And I just want to say thank you. I personally want to say thank you because you have given me life. Literally, in some, I mean, it's good. I look forward. Keep us posted on this documentary whenever it drops so I can tell everyone. And
Absolutely
I hope
will.
to have you back to talk a little cryptozoology,
You will.
because that is a topic we also discuss over here as well. Very interesting topic. So
I would love to. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me on. You were so kind to me the past couple of days on text. Thank you for everybody watching and listening. Make up your own mind, your own decision. But I thank you for giving me the platform. And I hope I came across and gave credit to
oh,
everybody
yeah.
that has helped me, from Burlington to Doty to Schmidt and Greer and Linda and you and Carrie. And when I say team, it's been a team. So I am not the lone wolf here. I have been lifted up on so many other people's shoulders, and I just
Amazing.
you and your audience that I respect and I appreciate everyone that's helped me.
Great work, John. I'm
Thank you.
serious. Great work.
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to talk with you again. I will be in touch with you as well. And I mean, keep us posted if you need anything, and we're always here.
Okay.
So
Thank you so
thank you,
much.
John, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Wow. Amazing. I have been literally looking forward to that all night. Probably the only interview that I have been nervous about. I've been nervous, today for this interview, and incredible. Again, we're talking about this film. Shout out to my cousin in the building. I see you. See you, T. What's up with it? How are you? So, I mean, this is the film we're talking about, right? This is the film. Um, Again, this came out in 1997. And there's that stamp that he's talking about, D&I. The /27 almost makes me think like it's a 27th copy or the 27th of something, D&I.
But you can tell that would have been done at a separate time versus the time that was running, you know? Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. I'll definitely be in touch. So I mean, all the work that Jon has put into this, I absolutely loved hearing his story, the context around it. Incredible speaker, great show. Had a great time talking to him. And yeah, it doesn't get any better than that. He cracked. He literally has cracked a dang near 30-year mystery. Yes, today is the 27th. Yep. Amazing. I what I am going to do though, because that's something I had not looked at, was Mr. Bernstein's analysis. I want to see that analysis of the eyes and the skin moving, because again, I know, just being an engineer, that is, very difficult to do, especially in 1990, whatever, right? And then early to mid 90s, to try to, I mean, you just literally put yourself in a position of, okay, I'm going to make a hoax video. If this is such a hoax, let me do it. So I'm going to try my best to try to do it. And you'll begin to realize that you can't. And even the cost of money that it would take to do this. I mean, think about like the movie E.T., for example, right? Or even movies of today with all the CGI. But even with all of that, you can look at this. And again, one of those things I say all the times, those tactics that they'll use, you don't see that here. You don't see the bean being covered up, the contrast being turned up, or the bright, all those weird things that people do with the fake alien videos. I mean, we literally have a clear shot of this being, as clear as day. And it has been perplexing, and it has been a video that is just garnered, so it's just been so mysterious ever since its release. And I just think that Jon has done an absolutely amazing job. So I personally thank him, honestly. And I really look forward, to what's to come in disclosure, just in general. I told you guys, we've been having a lot going on. I mean, even I received a couple of very strange leaked videos, and over, I mean, 3 in 1 week. And I mean, we've talked about that. But, one was a tall white. I was told the bean was repairing its craft. There, I look at that video and it's saying the indicators, right? There's no indication that we shouldn't have such a clear shot, right? But that insectoid creature as well. So anyway, incredible. Hunting Victor, the real truth. And Jon dropped a lot of bombshells tonight as well. The fact that he's got the names of all the people that were in those rooms, that was in this room. Wow. And the pulmonary thing is very telling, because it is said that these beings, something about them, the lungs, when they are here on Earth, little colonies, I guess colonies of some sort of like a fungus or something grows inside the lungs of these beings. This being was having it was coughing, and Victor used the word flagging. It's crazy, the monitor, because that monitor has always got me too. It's like, how in the, what is that thing? What is that thing beeping up and down? And incredible. It almost looks like it's just kind of like a light sitting there or something strange. But yeah, you get a nice shot of the body because of the light shining from these doctors, which one is dead and one is still alive, practicing in Connecticut. It would be nice for a doctor who's aging I mean, what's to hide? You know, why not just come on out and tell us that you worked on an alien being? You know, what's so bad about that? You took care of an alien being. I mean, the knowledge the man may possibly have just about their bodies and how their bodies are, the lungs and all that sort of a thing. But listen, I have been looking forward to this interview since yesterday, and I just want to give a special shout out to Momo, who is my loyal subby, who was able to kind of um, who told me about the Project Camelot interview, which is what led me to reach out and find Jon. And I just really want to thank him. So, yeah, guys, listen, before we get up out of here, allow me to pay a few bills. Shout out to the LeakYou community. Please join us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
Please hit the like. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Listen, thanks again to everyone who came through. Thanks to everybody, all you bush watchers. Listen, I'll be back tomorrow about this time. And, there's no telling what I'll be talking about, but I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time.
It's kept dark for the comfort of the aliens. The figure who is just barely visible in the left foreground is the telepath, and behind the camera is a raked seating area for observers. Although in this case, I believe the only other person present was a military aide. The alien is seated behind a glass partition in a biocontainment area, which is maintained at biosafety level 2, the lowest designation. That's primarily for the protection of the aliens, not us. The theory is that if they were going to infect us with an alien bug, it would have happened 50 years ago. In fact, all the indications are the aliens eliminated microbial and viral life from their own ecosystem long ago. They aren't susceptible to our diseases directly, but it has been shown that microbes can reproduce and form colonies within their respiratory systems, which tends to exacerbate the debilities they seem to suffer anyway in our environment. In fact, you can see here the alien is beginning to flag. The interview was not going well. The telepath was trying to clarify some points from a previous interview, but he wasn't receiving coherent response.
Please hit the like. Thank you.